On my last live stream over on Moog Extra, I got asked how I made, well, this, my VTubing model, and how someone else could make one for them. It's actually relatively easy as long as you have a basic understanding of Blender, but I'm going to take you all the way from scratch. And so, we're over here in private Firefox. Like I said, you're going to need Blender for this, so we're just going to go Blender, go to blender.org, and then you download Blender. I'm not going to do that because I already have Blender, but that's where you get it. Pretty easy. That's the obvious thing. The thing you're going to need next is the program that your model is going to be put into after you make it. The one I use is called VSeeFace, VSeeFace. Right over here. You can find it over here. Just scroll down through the stuff, download. When it comes up, then just extract your programs and install them. Now that we have the two programs we need, let's start on how to actually make your VTubing model. So let's go on over to Blender. Now that we're in Blender, the very first thing you need to do is go into Edit, Preferences, and search VRM, which pulls up the VRM format. You need to install and enable that. And once you do, you can go into Add, Armature, VRM Humanoid. And on the side panel for that, which, you click the thing, click it, the VRM one. In Operator, you need to make sure it is set to VRM00 because that's the version of VRM files that VSeeFace works with. And now technically, you're done. You have a VTubing skeleton, at least. But obviously, if you put this into it, it would be nothing because there's no mesh attached to it. But when it comes to the mesh you make, you can do pretty much whatever you want. The one caveat to that is that your mesh has to adhere to this T-post armature. You can't have the bones be in a overly different position from this. Now you can adjust the scale of these bones. So go to edit mode, click. You could say make the leg bones bigger. Or move the arms out more. But they have to stay in the same positioning. You can move where they are a little bit. You could move the legs out some. But they have to stay at the same angle of where they're at. You can't have the bones be bent like this. This base skeleton has to be positioned just like this. Now you can add other bones and have those connected to this skeleton. But this base skeleton has to stay pretty much just like this. So when it comes to designing your model, you have to keep that in mind. If you don't want your model to be basic human structure, you have to leave this mesh, but you can make your model be whatever and then parent it to just the head bone. So if you wanted as an example, if you wanted your model to just be big sphere, right? You could select your sphere, select your armature, go into pose mode, and parent your big sphere to just the bone of the head. And that way, when the head bone moved, your big sphere would move. And there wouldn't be any other bones that actually affect your big sphere. Or whatever the model is. But if you wanted to actually move somewhat like a human body, you got to keep it to this structure. The other thing you need to consider when making your model, and the reason why you can see OBS at the moment, is how much of your model is actually going to be seen. You can see, now that I've drug it out, my model doesn't have legs, nor does it really have hands. It's just got little tendril flaps. tentacle things. And that is because, for the most part, my VTubing model is just going to be down here, off to the side, and you're not going to see any of that. And also, because it's a weird eyeball monster, it doesn't really need these, and if I want to say it can hover around, it can hover around. But maybe you want your model to be fully seen like this, and you want to have hands that can move around, or maybe you want to use it not just to do a VTubing model, but to do something like VR chat room or something like that, because I'm pretty sure that also uses the VRM file format. You maybe want your model to be more than just this. It depends on, like I said, all of that depends on what you want your model to actually be doing. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume you want to use your model for much the same reason I do, to have a little dude in the corner of the screen to be your avatar to talk to people with. And for that, like I said, you don't really need hands, and you don't really need anything below the waist. And also, modeling this area is just more modeling. Don't need to worry about that too much. So, it's annoying to do. So, we're just going to make pretty much this area of our model. And to do that, we're going to keep it real simple. Bring in a cube, scale it down, bring it up, about center with your model, shrink it down, maybe like this. Give us our starting point. Go into edit mode, Control R to loop cut. We will Shift Alt to select this entire edge loop, this entire face loop. Click this to select that face and delete them. In our modifiers pane, we will add a mirror. So what happens to one side is copied to the other for ease of modeling. Scale this part, turn it in like so. Extrude it out to here, extrude it out to here, and extrude one out here for the entire hand area. Likewise, we'll do something like this. Bring it down here, scale that touch, in like this bit. And we'll do it down because it's not going to be We're just making here to show you the process. That said, we will still need a decent amount of geometry right around here for the shoulders to bend with. But first, let's make the neck. Scale it down like so. Out. Bring it up again. Then bring up the head area, like so. We'll do a loop cut here. Drag it over. Do one more. Drag it over. And although this area isn't really going to be bending, because it's just to have something off to the side, we will still give it a bevel, so that there's a little bit of flexibility there too. We'll give loop cut here for some more neck flexibility. Some here for some torso flexibility. And we got this. Now we can give it a subdivision modifier to make it a little smoother. Something like that. Hide the view for a second. It's just a tube. We want to make it a bit sharper. We can go into edit mode and loop select, say, just our head area, and then Shift E to sharpen just that part. We can shade auto smooth to where it does this. And now, technically, we have a VTubing model. A really basic one, but all we need to do to make this work is select our mesh, convert it to a mesh, select our armature, and select both of them, right-click, parent, automatic weights, and then we can just make sure it works by going to pose mode, wiggling a few parts. Now, when you test this, it is very important that you select everything and clear your transformations, because if you have any poses going on when you export this, it will mess it up. But we now technically have a fully functioning VTubing model. Of course, again, it has no features, but it will suffice to show you the second half of setting things up. So we're going to take over here in File, and we're going to go Export, Export as VRM, and then we save that export to whatever our convenient file to do so is. Now, I've actually opened up a separate copy of VSeeFace to go through explaining here. You'll notice that, so this is what it looks like. The only model I actually named when I made these. Most of these are just different versions of my eyeball guy. But this one, which I just brought in, is our test model to explain things with. You just click Add Avatar, you go to whatever folder you've got your VRM file in, you click it, and then it'll appear right here, and you hit Start. Now, this isn't exactly what it'll look like for you, because I've done some lighting stuff, and it stays on throughout all of VSeeFace, but this is pretty much what it'll look like. And you'll notice that while this is following my movements, that's all it's doing, because that's all we've set it up to do. But it is still following my movements. There's a couple things you can mess with in VSeeFace, but we will save that for when we have a model that actually does more than move with us. But if you just want a featureless cube thing to move with you, you're already there. Now, of course, we don't actually want our mesh to just be a featureless, our VR model to be just a featureless blob that follows our body movements. We obviously want it to be able to look where we're looking and make mouth movements as our mouth moves. And to do that, we're going to need to set up a bunch of shape keys that will correspond to these shape keys on the model, or on the VRM format. But because of how basic our example model is, it's going to be a little annoying. So what I'm actually going to do is, well, we're going to unparent this, and then we're going to rework its head a little bit. So we're just going to go Clear and Keep Transform, and then we're going to mess with this model a bit more. We're going to go here. We're going to make sure we are on individuals. We're going to press E, shrink this down like so. E, do that one more time. We're going to extrude this back, extrude it back and back up. And then over here, we're going to press E, unselect it, E, unselect it. Then select these two outer ones, shrink them down. Now we're going to do it, press E again, shrink it down, bring it back a little, shrink it, bring it back a little. Gives us a little cavity. And in here, we can now also E extrude out, and then Shift D, bring out a separate little cube to be our eyes, just for the sake of the example. And now we can shade smooth it, and then give it one more subdivision surface. Make it look like that instead. Now we apply that by Convert to Mesh. And now we have a face to actually give shape keys to. So if we select everything again, select our thing, we go Parent, and then Automatic Weights. We make sure that moves correctly. Nope. These did not assign correctly. And so to fix that, you're going to go into Object Mode, Edit Mode. We click both of our little floating eye things. Control L to select the entirety of the connected area. We're going to separate by selection. Back into object mode. We grab these two, which are still regarded as the same thing. You're going to have to do that one more time. Control L on one of them. Separate selection. We are going to parent, and then parent automatic weights. And then that should hopefully make it work correctly. Yes. Okay. Now that the eyes move with the head, we can rejoin them to the same mesh, so it's easier to keep track of and work on. And then the weight painting, the automatic weight painting, should be still functioning. So let's test that one more time. Good. Okay. Now we can actually hide our arm while we're in pose mode. So go into object mode, select our armature, and we can actually hide it for the moment. And now over here on the VRM, yeah, we will bring up the VRM0 blend shape proxy and select our model. In the data pane, we need to add corresponding shape keys to all of these shape keys, or at least all of the shape keys here that we actually want to use. For example, on my model, while I have the blink, the master blink shape key, I don't have the blink left or blink right because I only have one eye. And I only have some of the expression ones, and they don't actually need to correspond to the expression itself. They can be any extra expression. If I remember correctly, my sorrow shape key expression is what controls my... No, these are some of them, but... Bleh. Yeah, this is what the sorrow one does for me. Regardless, you need to assign all of the ones you're going to be using to corresponding shape keys. So we're just going to select this name, Control C, and then over in the shape keys pane, we're going to select give it the base one, give it a new one, double click, Control V, that's neutral, and we're just going to go through and do this for all of the shape keys we're going to use. It has one for every vowel sound, which is what's meant to control the mouth movements. It's got ones for different, happy, sad, blink, all that kind of stuff. And we just got to go through the tedious process of copying all of the ones we're going to use over to here. Editor mode here, I realized that when I had my model up, I was blocking where the shape key window is. This is what I'm talking about here. This is all the shape keys. This is what you're doing, where you're doing the stuff. Yeah, probably should let you see what it actually looks like. So now, over here, we need to first turn all of these shape keys off. So just click on them, slide value all the way to 0. Now that none of them are affecting, on neutral, we can actually just leave it as it is because it's our default. So we're going to click A for our ah mouth sound. We're going to go into sculpt mode, and we got to make sure this is selected, and we'll turn the value up. And now we can hit X symmetry. Okay, Y symmetry. Why? What are you? We want X symmetry. There we go. And we can use this to move our mouth around. I'm just using the basic grab brush for this. So on A, it's kind of ah. We're just gonna make our mouth shape. It's better to exaggerate them a little bit because it's almost never going to go the full extent of the expression when using VSeeFace. So, like I said, over-exaggerate is better than under. Now, if we exit sculpt mode and we wiggle this, it'll go... And now we just do that for all of the other ones. Alright, that's all of our vowel sound expressions. Now we can do blink. So we're just going to grab the top of the eyes, bring them down. Bring them out a little. Drag this down. drag this up. Until the eyes are closed. And a little bit past that, and then we can use the smooth brush to kind of, well, smooth this out a little. There we go. We got a blink. Look up, we do. Now for look up and all the other look arounds, what I actually like to do is use edit mode instead of sculpt mode. Control select both of these and just grab, move them up. And then shrink them down a little bit, like so. So look up now does this. Do something similar for look down. Pull them down. Do like that. Down like so. Something like that. Look down. We do look left, and because this is flipped, we are going to actually make the eyes point. Oops. We actually want to turn off X symmetry when we're in edit mode for this. So for what it says look left, we actually want to make it look right from our perspective. Something like that. And we do the opposite for look right. Bring it like this, and like that. And again, you can put other shape keys for extra expressions. We'll do one, we'll do one just to give you the idea. We'll do, I think sorrow is the one I think sorrow is the one I mapped to have my go bleh. Because it doesn't have to be the expression. You can map it to whatever shape key you want. So we'll use sorrow as our example for that. Control V, sorrow, and for sorrow, we'll go sculpt mode, and we'll just make something ridiculous just for the example. The emotion expressions don't have to actually correspond to what the emotion is. I mean, that's how they're supposed to work, but VSeeFace has never correctly picked up on my facial expressions, so I just use them to make weird shape keys. So this does this. And now they actually work together with each other, so if you have look left and look down, you'll look down and to the left, so on, so on. And now that we have our shape keys, we have to actually attach these shape keys to these ones. So we go up, neutral. We go to binds, click it, and then we select our object, and then we go shape keys, neutral, and we repeat this process for all of our shape keys. Now, if we move it on this, it also does it. That's right. Good, 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 good. Sorrow does the weird thing we had it do for the sake of having it do something. Blink. Mouth shapes. Alright. That's working. All of our different shape keys are doing what they do. Now we can make sure they're working. We save, and then we go to we do the same file export VRM thing. And in this instance, I overwrit the previous version of the model. And now, because I overwrit the previous version, we don't even have to go in and add a new model. And you'll see that it's actually reacting to me talking and moving now how it should. Or at least how we made it do. Blah, 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 blah. Blink, When I blink, it blinks. You'll see it doing my main model doing the same. We now have a VTubing model. There's no textures or anything. It's just weird cube man, but it works. Now, to actually give us textures, we need to go back into Blender and, assign it materials. Now, when we make materials for this mesh, there's two ways to go about it. Either we make a simple, and I do mean, actually there's three ways to go about it. Either we make it a very simple material, and I do mean very simple because it would be pretty much just the printable BSDF. So say we do something like this, give it a bit of roughness, give it what looks like a plastic texture like that. Or we do the pre-existing, not pre-existing, go back into materials. Or we give it the VRM tune material down here. Will need to be in render view. And by the way, you want to do this in Eevee, not cycles, because it will not work correctly. It will not show you what you want to see correctly in cycles. So over here, we can change. We see we have a sun I put in here a second ago. We can change in the VRM2 material the light and shade colors. So say we give it this red as our light and something like this as our shadow color. We can adjust these sliders to determine how sharp of a cutoff it is if we want it to be very cartoony, and we can use this to adjust somewhat where, our shadow line is. In the VRM2 material, we can also give it a outline. You'll want to set it to world coordinates and just drag this up a little. Then you can change the color if you want. Do something like that. And now we can give it a couple extra materials for the eyes. Now, if you have the VRM2 material on, it won't react to anything you do over here anymore. So keep that in mind. You either do the 2 material, or you do a basic BSDF, or you do a texture paint, but that's another thing for another time. So we can give it another material, and for this one, we will just do the BSDF version. We'll go into edit mode. We can say loop select this part of the eye, loop select it on the other side, make sure we got the same spot. We do this so I can make sure, yes. We can hide that, click, Control L to select all of that, and we can give it this material, and then we can make another new material, and we can select our eye dots and give them a black material that has 0 roughness. Do something like that. Go back into light view, and now we can change this into having an emission value of, say, 1. There we go. This is from the outline of the model, so if you don't want to have this weird artifacting, if you want to have it be looking from the side, you will need to either you'll need to go to that material and either turn off the outline or make the outline smaller to where you don't really have that effect be super noticeable. And we can also put a new material on the inside of the mouth. For the sake of this, we will just stick with the material we made for the eye pupil. Ta-da! We can save this, export it, and now we come back to VSeeFace, and our new model is doing. It has a texture now. Now, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's the wiggle bones that we can cover here in a minute, but for the basics of making a VTuber model, that's pretty much it, like I said. So we're going to talk about the things you can do in VSeeFace itself here for a second. So firstly, if you press the Alt key and then scroll your wheel, that zooms you in and out, which it might be doing that both on... Nope, it's not doing that in both. Good. Now, if you press Alt and hold down on your scroll wheel, you can also move your dude around. If you hold Alt and left click, you can rotate. Now, if you go into settings, you can control your lighting, which this is probably going to change it on my other model too, because I think that stays in parity. Oh, nope, it didn't. Okay. Up the intensity. I have another effect on, that's why that glows there. Let's say turn my lighting yellow. Actually, let's turn off the extra effects on this one. General, bloom, turn that off for a second so you can really see what I'm talking about. Disable. None of those are on. Okay. So, in our settings, light settings, here, this is our sun intensity controller. Lighting's coming in from like that. We can control our ambient lighting as well, if we don't want there to be any, if we want it to be particular color. Adjust its intensity. Now, is this changing it on my mind? No. Okay. So I should be fine to keep messing with this. It won't mess up my other one. We can go over to settings. We're already on light settings. We can open up settings, we can cover effect settings now. General is just the basic information on it. Bloom is what it says. You can adjust what color it will be, the intensity of the color, the intensity of the bloom effect. It is dependent on your lighting, so go back to light settings. Do this, up its intensity. That's ambient. Bloom will work more off of the sun, so up its intensity. Just like so. If I go too much, the bloom kicks in and it makes this happen. But we can also affect it over here. So it should happen sooner. You can affect the diffusion of it. You can affect, like I said, how intense it is, how much it is, the color it is. You wanted to do that for some reason. You can also just enable and disable it. Ambient occlusion is an ambient lighting thing, pretty much. Lens distortion you can do if I enable it. Ooh. Gives you kind of a fisheye effect, depending on how you mess with it. Chromatic aberration. Not super noticeable here, but if I had a more, notable model, it would be a bit. You can do this to mess. Probably shouldn't do that quickly. You can adjust your overall brightness and contrast if you want to mess with that. You can enable a grain effect, which up the size you can really start to see. And you can do halftone if you want to be newsprint. But because of how simple the texture is, it isn't super noticeable here. Did I leave chromatic on? You can kind of see the effects of chromatic now. If I turn that off, it doesn't do it. There's a lot of settings you can play with. But now you can do general settings to mess with your model itself. That doesn't really... Blink sensitivity controls how sensitive it is to your eyes opening and closing. Blink smoothing is... anything smoothing is how abruptly it transitions from one to the other. Thresholds is when it starts recognizing it. Drift speed is how quickly it'll move back to one thing or another. This controls, lip syncing from your microphone versus it looking at your mouth, smoothing of the mouth expressions, your arm angle if you want to go, "Aah!" Shoulder stiffness affects that a little bit. Shoulder stiffness is more how much your shoulders move as you move around. Body stiffness is much the same. You can move a bit more. Neck stiffness, you get the idea. These only really matter if you have the wind stuff, only really matters if you have wiggly bones, and even then it doesn't affect it too much. Tracking loss timeout is if it ever loses track of your positioning. This is when it will count that. You can enable auto blink if you want to have it blink randomly at intervals. You can have it be less sensitive when you're looking down. You can fake the gaze if you'd rather, which I don't have it enabled, but if it's not tracking your eyes well, you might wanna. You can enable or disable it syncing with your audio, because you'll notice it only really works slightly based off of just raw mouth, but when I enable the audio sync, it works way better. This is if you can do spring bone or stuff or not, which you get the idea. There's a lot of stuff to play with. You just kind of have to mess with it. I was going to cover how to set up spring bones, but they're their own complicated mess. So I think I'd actually probably rather save doing an explanation for spring bones to be a little later, because I'm not fully 100% confident in my ability to do them myself. I only ever had one model that I mess with doing them on a little bit, which would be my John Wobbles set, but as you can see, it didn't really work super well on this one either. So if I'm going to explain spring bones, I'd probably need to brush up on them a bit more than I am, because like I said, only mess with them once. So for now, I will cover one last thing about the VSeeFace interface that I almost forgot to for a second. And that, let me go up to R1. This guy is the mirror motion thing right here. You'll notice that this is active right now. If I turn this off, if I move this, it's what mirrors your model. So it's going to look the opposite way that you are if you don't have it enabled. But if you do this, it'll still point the same direction you're looking. So if I look to my right, it'll look to the right of the screen. But if I turn it off, it'll look to the left. And the only real time you want mirror motion off is if you have your model upside down for some reason. Now, to hide all of this interface stuff so you don't see it, you first click this little X right here, and then to hide it right here, you hit the space bar. And now you'll notice that it has the transparent PNG squares for the background. If this is how you have it be the transparent overlay, like this one is for me, which actually, so, boop, boop. And to get your model into your video, like how mine is, you'll see I have OBS open. This is my interface that the VSeeFace is feeding into an OBS. It's said to capture the specific VSeeFace window. And in properties, you need to make sure that allow transparency is on, because if it's not, well, you'll see that it just has the checkermark background. So you need to have allow transparency on if you want to actually be able to see behind your model in your video. But yeah, that should cover pretty much everything except the spring bones. But like I said, not 100% sure how to do those. I did it once, and if I'm being honest, I kind of forgot. So if I'm going to do a thing talking about spring bones, it's going to have to be its own video. But hope this helps. What are you still doing here? The video's over. There might be some for you up there, or some for you over there, but there's nothing left here, so hit the YouTube buttons and move on.